The Asus TUF Gaming A17 looks good and reads like a brilliant laptop. But like how nothing is perfect, it isn't perfect too. But it wasn't really bought for gaming in our case. So let's see why we really wasted off this money on a gaming laptop if a gaming laptop wasn't bought for gaming purposes. Growing up sucks. Hey everyone, Mukul here. So a friend recently bought this laptop as he wanted to have a portable machine that can be used for his 3D rendering workloads. So why he went with a 17-inch screen is because of the fact that he doesn't plan to do renderings inside a metro or a cab on the laptop's battery. The 17-inch laptops are anyway more like easy to travel from point A to B workstations. In the box you get a laptop and a charger. The charger is quite lightweight, but really if that's your concern with the charger, then you should just fall in love with the laptop's 2.6 kilograms of weight. But I mean, it's not bad for the thing it packs with that huge 17.3-inch screen on it. I like the design overall. I have no major complaints about it. It looks stealthy, which is great if you are an introvert too. The matte noisy finish on the top panel with those nice looking vents and the copper heatsink wafers in the back look decent too. The edgy design also looks nice to me as I like big edges and I cannot lie. The outer lid of the laptop is supported by a thick metal plate which makes it feel very sturdy. The areas around the keyboard and the base is plastic though. Also the material is quite fingerprint marks free. The sides have this brushed plastic feel to it. The bezels of the screens do have a decent thickness with the bottom bezel being the thickest. Here's your crisis kind of honeycomb design for the base with so many vents. The top back portion of the laptop will still be visible when it's closed, so the 4 LED indicators will be visible either way. I really dig this design element of the laptop. Sometimes these tiny design elements are more than enough to lure a customer in. So let's quickly go through the specs of it first, as NASA statistics have told us that most of you already know about them. This variant comes with a powerful Ryzen 4800 chip on it with 8 cores and 16 threads, which was very crucial for the task that need CPU rendering and stuff like that. It also has a 8x2 16GB DDR4 RAM modules at 3200 MHz from Micron. The laptop can support up to 32 GB of total memory on it. There are 2 slots which are easily accessible once you know how to open the laptop, which won't be that easy until you have a pry tool with you or something like that. If you're not sure of what you are doing, take some professionals' help to open this up. Also, there is a nice disassembly video of the laptop which I will make sure to post in the description. And it also comes with a GTX 1660 Ti 6GB on it. And there's also a 512 MB of integrated Vega graphics on the laptop to give you better battery performance by shutting off the dedicated GPU for menial tasks. It also comes with a 256 GB SSD with a 1 TB of hard drive which runs at 5400 RPMs. There are a bunch of ports around the laptop. The right side is quite vacant though, making the only USB-A port feeling kinda lonely. Let's start with the screen first. The 120Hz Full HD panel will obviously feel smooth and you would never want to use a 60Hz after experiencing something like this. Like how I am loving it, and I would just hate to go back to my desktop monitor which actually runs on a 60Hz screen, as I'm so old that the dinosaurs who sold that monitor to me were younger than me. The BOE panel used on the laptop has average brightness levels which are more than sufficient for indoor usage and not for outdoor usage, as the screen could really use some more punch to the brightness if you plan to use this massive laptop outside. The screen has a matte finish, so light reflections would be the least of your concerns, and the viewing angles of the screens were great. The colors and contrast were ideal and would do the job for designers who are not into printing work, as it just covers about 60% sRGB gamut, which clearly means the laptop screen was meant for gamers and not designers. But as a creator myself who mostly makes stuff which is to be viewed on different kind of screens, I don't feel the screen is a major issue here. There was apparent backlight bleeding on the panel, but there was no visible color tints on the screen. The one-handed open-up operation was successful with slight hiccups though. The keyboard is backlit, so it just lits. However, the WASD keys cover are translucent, so you can look inside them and get to know them better. The arrow keys on the right are quite tiny though, and obviously this has numpad keys too. The function keys placement felt a little off to me as I kept hitting F4 instead of F5. But that's just me and my case and my fingers and my hand. But I really did enjoy typing on this keyboard. The keys are quite nicely protruding and I mostly use a mechanical keyboard on my desktop, so this felt just fine in comparison for being a laptop keyboard. Not as perfect though, but because of the quite spacious palm rest before the keys, typing was quite comfortable on it with my decently sized hands. The trackpad felt a little finicky, but the touchpad keys felt quite sturdy. The sound of the speakers is quite okay. I mean, it's decently loud, but for the sheer size of the laptop, they could have been definitely better. The sound of the vocals were quite clear. But what was really nice was the mics on this laptop. And yes, the webcam has this usage indicator on it too. Here's a webcam video sample which to me looked quite average.
And this is how the video quality is in an indoor environment, of course, because I'm not planning to carry a 17 inches laptop outside in broad sunlight and like record my own videos, because lighting is proper there and this is not a vlogging machine. I think this is enough blabbering for this test.
Now about the performance of the laptop. The Blender 2.90 benchmark renders performed best in optics render mode with the fastest rendering times. The optics and CUDA rendering uses GPU for rendering, unlike the CPU render, which well of course uses CPU for CPU rendering. But the spike during the classroom CPU render that took more than twice the render time was a bit concerning. So I'm pretty sure it did power throttle during this specific test and hence the render time increased. During the Blender run test in CPU mode, the highest average clock speeds retained to somewhat around 3.6 GHz with temperatures as high as 88 degrees Celsius and even above 90 degrees Celsius sometimes. This kind of made the laptop panic, and hence power throttle was introduced, which pushed the CPU clocks to about 3.4 GHz and hence the temperatures to about 84 degrees Celsius. The peak wattage reached till 60 watts, which is quite good to pull out as much juice as you can from this chip. So this oddity was there on the laptop, which I couldn't investigate better as the laptop was with me for just a few days. And during these CPU tests specifically, it was impossible to use the laptop for any other tasks, like even for example making a new folder on the desktop. The Cinebench R20 multi-core scores averaged around 4000. Let's see some dedicated GPU benchmarks now with games. And sadly I couldn't install many games on the laptop because it was just for a few days with me. During the Metro Exodus benchmark, the game ran comfortably over 60 FPS in medium settings and at 48 FPS in high settings. But at ultra settings, it dipped to about 38 average FPS. But the game will still be playable in not so extreme levels, but yeah, it definitely needs some dips in some of the graphic settings. The Unigen superposition score at extreme was about 3000 and it actually jumped 2.5 times at the high settings. During the GPU stress test during the Blender optics render, the max GPU temperature reached around 82 degrees Celsius with the GPU power peaking till 40 watts. But there was no throttling issues here, so it definitely behaved way better than the CPU test we did before. During these tests, I was able to do a bit of multitasking without any issues though, like how I faced during the CPU benchmarking tests. Checking how a mix of both CPU and GPU behaves, rendering a 6 minutes 4K clip at 24 FPS took about 2 minutes and 10 seconds on the laptop, which actually took about 1 minute to 40 seconds on a desktop machine which ran a 2070 Super with a 3900X on it. So clearly the laptop can perform really good in video editing and rendering. There was also no scrubbing issues while I used Premiere to edit 4K videos. So the performance of the laptop is generally great. It's one of those rare laptops which can truly calm my impulsive, impatient behavior with the workload I usually throw on my machines. At intense GPU or CPU workloads, the fan kick in so hard that they truly show the real character of the laptop. They definitely get very loud. So yeah, you have to make that sacrifice for using all the performance this laptop can offer. The sacrifice of listening to a slight bzzz. During one of the GPU stress tests, I could sense a slight smell from the vents at the back, which kind of scared me actually, but I think that was just the copper heatsink sharing their true essence during a hot run. But at light workloads, the laptop would be mostly noise-free. There is no special software bundle made for tweaking the sound of the laptop, so you just gotta rely on the basic in Windows setting to alter any basic settings, so have fun basicing the hell out of it. The Armory crate has a nice UI overall. It's pretty edgy, which kinda goes with their laptop design. It just looks like a UI out of a game actually. It shows all stats like the core temps, usage, temperature, fan speeds, etc. of your CPU and GPU. And you can also adjust the keyboard's lighting and if it is strobing or breathing. And this also has a really nice resource monitor. There are a ton of display tweaks you can do in game visuals too. You can also customize the shortcut keys and more stuff like that. The BIOS also has a neat UI, but you can't play with the volts or clocks of the CPU in there. What's actually best is that it has the Easy Flash 3 utility, which once ran directly from the Windows, restarts Windows, boots up in the BIOS and updates the BIOS itself. There was a sick issue with the laptop though. When I tried to run the Unigen test or the Metro Exodus benchmark, the laptop by default always tried to choose the onboard GPU and not the 1660 Ti, which is actually a waste of the 1660 Ti. So I tried adding the software and the game in the Armory software, but it did not work. Then I tried adding it to the window graphics settings and again it didn't work. And so then I tried adding them in NVIDIA's control panel and finally it worked. So I'm not sure why it just fails at this, but it did. So here am I telling you about it. I feel Asus could have definitely done better in regards to cooling the CPU chip of this laptop. I mean, there is definitely an ample amount of space and vents on the laptop. And yeah, for cooling it does make ample amount of sound too. But still somehow the CPU managed to power throttle and reduce the average core clocks by 200 MHz. I mean, we are aware that the desktops are far better if you are supposed to continuously render on a machine, but if a laptop this beefy and this massive in size kinda lacks in maintaining a cool chip, then it does get a bit disappointing. The GPU however performed great, and doing GPU specific render and gaming on this machine would be pure fun. So will I recommend this laptop for gaming or for other kind of workloads? Hell yeah. If the games and the workloads you will put on the laptop is more of a GPU dependent task, rather than being totally dependent on the CPU. As the power throttle and the incapability of the laptop to keep the CPU temperatures under 90 degrees and under extreme workloads kinda deviates my feeling towards recommending it wholeheartedly. So yeah, this is about it. I will definitely post its Amazon links in the description below. Do leave a like and sub with the bell if this video helped you in any way. That's all for today. Mewbot, Toughly, out.